Accomplices. I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist in Kelowna, British Columbia. Today we're going to work on the painting we started at the last video, just using some shapes, some inspiration to just get some color on the page. Now we're going to fine-tune it. Well, Accomplices, we got some color on the paper. We're looking at some shapes, some little blooms, things that I wasn't expecting to happen. And these are the things that we have to deal with on a daily basis. I'm just going to remove some of the moisture from the tape and see what we can do to fix up some of these little things that happen. The paper is still rather damp, which is a good thing. Adding more water to a painting is tricky because the water will leave hard edges where it dries, and so that's why I prefer to, when I paint, to do a sort of a wet on wet entire painting so everything kind of blends together. But you can see here where I've got a bit of a bloom happening. So I'm going to turn that into a tree. And I love to do my trees just kind of loose and random, because trees are kind of loose and random. You see them out in nature. And I love to do these pine trees, fir trees, cedar trees, the things that we see most often in the forests in British Columbia, where I live. And we'll put this guy here, which will lead me on to thinking about where I'm going to place another couple of these guys, because I think I don't want him just standing out there. And then we'll move on to our birches. And I don't know, there's something about birch trees that so many people just gravitate to. They're gorgeous. They can be colorful. They can be stately and black and white. I've done all sorts. But there's something about them that, for me, just brings out the creativity. And I just want to share with you, while we're talking about birch trees, a beautiful email I got from one of my subscribers, Sheila from Saskatoon. And it's, oh gosh, these are the things that really make my day. And I have Sheila's permission to read this out to you. The other day she wrote, I realize you must get many, many emails, and I won't make this a habit. I wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because after many years, I feel like I've achieved success in watercolor, and it is because of your videos. Oh, here are 2 cards on Strathmore paper, plus a larger one done on Hanamula, which we've demonstrated before. The collection watercolor 300 grams per square meter that I've done in the last week. I am so excited. Signed Sheila Haubrick from Saskatoon. That just, as I say, made my day, made my week. I am so happy that I can share a little bit of what I do and know that it's coming back, that people are, I'm just going to see if I can hold this up at the right spot to see Sheila's beautiful paintings. She has done such a gorgeous job of these birches. 2 of them are on smaller pieces of paper so that they can be made into greeting cards. But look at that. How beautiful. I love that she's got the shading on the one side of the tree, the colors in the bottom blending for the shrubbery, the mountains in the background fading into the glowing sunrise, sunset. I'm not sure which is which. But yeah, how exciting is that? I hope that the same holds true for all of you, that you try. Maybe you love birches, maybe you love something else. But applying color and bringing things to life and adding your own stamp to what you do is also so exciting. So thanks, Sheila. I really do appreciate hearing from you. I hope we'll see more of your work as it appears. So yeah, we can share what we do. We can inspire each other. And there's something about nature that really just does it for me. So I'm going to add a few more of these trees. Because the paper now is dried a little bit more, I need a bit more water on my brush. And again, this is the Lebanzon 1.5-inch Goat synthetic blend brush that is never very far from my hand. We did a video interview with Tracy not long ago. You'll find it on the channel if you're interested. He's such an interesting fellow, and his brushes are truly a treasure. Don't know what I would do without them in my studio. So I'm just going to maybe use a little bit of that background color here, just to darken the center and fill them out as a little bit of more of the trees. Sometimes it just takes a couple of strokes, and you can. I'm going to make this guy a little bit taller, but you can see now we've covered up the little bloom with a tree. Trees are amazing. Trees are absolutely amazing. They come to your rescue more often than you realize sometimes. So we've got something nice happening in this area. This is a bit of a quiet background. I'm going to go into my Mayan dark blue fairly thick on my brush, and I'm just going to add a few more of these. I guess they're they're not pine trees. They're fir trees, spruce trees, cedar trees. Actually, maybe not cedar. Cedar's boughs lay down a little bit more. But we'll get a few of these in here, and maybe another one over here. It doesn't take a lot. I like to leave a lot to the imagination. So if you put a couple of well-placed trees in the painting, you know, people will get the idea that that's a forest. And like I said, they don't have to be perfect trees. They just have to be the indication of a tree. And this area over here maybe is more leaning to perhaps deciduous kind of trees. So they're a bit more fluffy, for lack of a better word. Okay. And I like to add a bit of the Quinacridone gold into some of these tree shapes on deciduous trees, because it gives a sense of light, highlights, and we'll just give it a bit of a more of a rounded top, and we'll give this one a rounded top, and this one in the back here too, a little bit of the darker gold in there to lighten that up. And then afterwards, I will go in with perhaps a fine liner pen or just the tip of my beautiful Lebanzon brush, and give some definition to some tree trunks in there. But you can see where, because the water and the pigment here was fairly loose, I just let it flow. You can see where it's actually created its own shadows. So you've got some undergrowth happening, some highlights happening. Looks like perhaps there might even be a little pathway coming down through this way, and we could enforce that a little bit more by lifting that out shortly if we wanted to. So I see one of the things that I did, and I said we were using Mayan dark blue, Undersea green, and Quinacridone gold in this little exercise. But I see I dipped my brush into the Indanthrone blue. So it's a brighter blue. And so I've wavered from my plan of using 3 colors. So now we have 4 colors. And the Indanthrone, as I say, is a brighter blue. So I'm going to have to think about how I want to deal with that. So I think what I want to try, and this is an experiment, and this is what this is all about, right? Take what you've got, play around with it. Yes, this is on very expensive paper, but I'm pretty sure it can be rescued There's lots of ways to do that. So I'm just wetting the area where that Indanthrone blue was, because I find it a bit bright. And I'm going to blend a little bit of that. And I'm going to see what the Quinacridone Gold will do if I add a little bit of that in. Again, just with the tip of my brush. And I think it's going to give us a bit of a green, more natural looking tone to the shrub or whatever it is here. It's one of these things that you know, is out of the imagination, and so we can call it whatever we want to call it, right? I'm just going to make some lines coming just to fill in some of those branch areas looked a little stark. So we'll just try to create something that's a little bit maybe more natural looking, maybe not. There, it'll look like some kind of crazy grass is growing out. I love that what the Quinacridone Gold has done here is it's blended with that blue, and it's given this, I don't even know how to describe the melding of those colors and how they've done this beautiful bit of magic on the page. I'm going to try my plastic tab trick. This is just off of a produce bag. But I think what I would like to do is maybe carve a bit of interest in the bottom here. The Indanthrone has actually stained the page considerably, but I can still push it around a little bit, make it look like there's a bit of a rocky area. Probably if I added a bit more of the gold, it may push that away enough that I can there we go. Get a little bit of lightness and interest showing there. So we have some rock shapes and a little bit of. I'll bring that up a tiny bit. I tend to not want to leave really straight lines and edges in my landscapes. And there we go. So we do have a bit of that Indanthrone blue kind of coming through, brightening things up a little bit. I've got a bit of it in here too, so that's great. What I might even consider is adding maybe just a bit of that in the undertones of the shadows on the trees in the background. I'm just going to dab away a bit of that color so it's not quite so harsh. It will dry a bit lighter, so that's encouraging. And the rest of this is probably going to be a similar process. We'll just quickly add a bit of gold into these Indanthrone blue areas, just because I really loved how that magic happened. I don't even know what it's called. It's escaping me right now, but it will be just, I think, exactly what this painting needs to, and I'm just laying this Quinacridone Gold in, and my brush is, I'm dipping my brush in the water, and then laying it gently on my palette to pick up the paint. I'm not scrubbing it. I'm just allowing the brush to pick up that pigment. It's fairly full. These little brushes hold a ton of water and pigment. And I'm just going to lay that on top of that blue in sort of random droplets, and just let that play. Because I did some kind of streaking out there, I'll try some of that over here. This looks like it could be a little bit of a rocky outcropping there too. So I'm going to encourage that there. maybe just add a bit more of the Indanthrone, or not the Indanthrone, the Mayan dark blue, just to bring that color back down into this area a little bit as well. So there's some nice opportunities there to keep those colors in the same family. Now, when I use the plastic tab, I like the page to be fairly damp. You want it wet enough that the pigment can be moved with the tab, and there's a point where you have to just kind of watch and decide how much of that you want to move around. But the tabs can be so helpful just to extend your landscape. And we'll make another little pile of rocks happening over here, I think, as well, just to add some interest. These trees are coming from below the page, so they're coming from a space before the rocks, and they're coming up in front of these rocks. So this is how I play and create as I go. And this I can see now is just needing a little bit more of the Mayan dark blue, just so that we can get some undertones and some shadows if we're going to do another bank of rocks over here. So I'm just adding a bit of pigment, fairly rich, fairly thick. I don't want to add a lot more water to the page. And then we will just carve some rocky shapes here, right up against that little tree that's going to happen there. And you can see where, I hope you can see where I'm able to push the pigment away a little bit. Okay. You can also use the corner of your plastic. You have to be careful that it's not too pointed. Often if you were to use a credit card and cut it up, the points would be very, very sharp, and you can really damage your paper. But if you use something that's a little less sharp, and just while your paper is still that beautiful, rich wetness, it's not pooling, but the color is still glistening a little bit, you can go in and you can shape some branches, some twigs, different things happening. Fairly loose hand, just get things here. So we've created some interest, we've added a bit of flow, we've let the pigment sort of move on their own because there was enough water on the page, and because this experiment started on 100% cotton paper. This is Baohong Master's watercolor paper. Highly recommend it. It's something that one of the papers that a lot of the artists now are using. Michael Soloviev recommends it. He paints it with it all the time. It is available in most art stores. Also available in online on the Watercolor Online Studio. That's Michael Soloviev's studio in various sizes. This is on a block. I love to paint on a block. I'm not a fan of spending a lot of time stretching my paper and working with that. I think I've mentioned before, I have a lot going on in my life. I look after my grandkids, and my time to paint often is kind of limited. And so I've developed a way to get things done fairly quickly, and painting on a block is one of the things that I love to do. So you can see, even though it's 100% cotton paper, it's doing a little bit of heaving and rippling. If I leave it on the block until it's completely dry, that will go right back to the beautiful flatness that it came with. One of the things that I did notice, I took a block of paper, it wasn't this Baohong, took a block of paper to Mexico with me in the fall, and the humidity there was so great that the whole block rippled. And I had to bring it home and put it under a very heavy weight, and wait weeks for it to dry and flatten out again. So there's never a dull moment. There's always something to consider. All right, so I've got, I think, pretty much most of the basis of the design down. I can still continue to fine tune. I will take my tape off. One thing I love about this tape, and again, this is from the Watercolor Online Studio, Michael Soloviev. It's called his solo tape. It's a black masking tape. I love the black. It gives me a good visual. Because I use my pigments rich and dark, I love that the black sort of is that that basis for me. And it also, if I wanted to allow a border around my page when I paint, which I often do, it gives me a sense of what the painting will look like when it's matted with a black mat. And it comes off so beautifully. I think online it recommends that you could leave it on for 12 or 14 days and it would still come off. It's still tacky. So I will save that and shred it for another birch tree project at some point. When you're removing the tape though, because this paper is still a slight bit damp, low and slow. So pull it as close to the surface of your painting as you can and as slowly as you can. And I'm going to have to use this little knife to pull up this tape from the stump there in the background. So when I taped this on the previous episode, I did it quickly, was just wanting to get some pigment on the page. So I didn't worry about doing all of the edges of the trees like this side. I put an extra row of torn tape just to give that irregularity. That can be achieved with paint, with pigment now. And I would switch to a couple of ways of doing this. You could use your plastic tab and dip it into your paint and just pull it across that way. You can dip it into the thick pigment, or you can thin it out a little bit. This is why I love this mister. It gives such a nice fine mist and it doesn't over wet things. It's easier to go back again and spray a couple of times rather than try to take back what's too much or try to blot it off because you're wasting pigment that way. And then I can go into this wetness and it gives a nice bit of color. At the bottom of the trees, I might want something a little deeper, so I will just go straight into my palette where the pigment is thicker. And just a few spots. And now, of course, I do this all the time. I start on this side when I should be starting on this side because I don't want to drag my hand in there. So I'm going to be very careful. You can see where the edge of the tape, I didn't bother burnishing it down, so a little bit of the color has come through on the edge. And that's fine. I love that. It gives that little bit of extra texture and definition to the sides of my trees. When I do this, I try to give just a hint of a curve to indicate that those trees are rounded. And someone told me once that certain trees, if they're a distance away, you curve one way, and if they're closer, you curve the other way. But I haven't quite grasped that. My part of my brain that deals with perspective is not. It doesn't work like most people. So I'm just happy to get these marks on here, and I found also a lot of what I paint leaves a fair bit to the viewer's imagination, and I kind of like that. I mean, I've had people say to me, "Oh, how did you get that face in there?" when I had no intention of putting a face in. So, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder as to what gravitates, what their eye gravitates to, what appeals to them. So you can put those little marks on with your plastic, or you can take a little flat brush, and I have some new brushes, some Galliano brushes, Opus brand from the Opus company here in Canada. And somewhere there was a flat one. I don't know where it went. But you can use, we'll try this one. You can use a flat brush this way, as long as it comes to a fairly fine point there. And then you can bring your colors in. I also, for my trees, I often like to bring the Moonglow color in. It's a beautiful color. It sort of granulates on its own. It's got a bit of purple. It's got, so I just wetted the palette, just touched my brush, just to get started. I don't want to overdo it, so I just want to start very carefully. And so the brush will give you, you know, that same, similar effect, not quite the same. And we'll put a bit of purple in there. And a bit more on this little guy. And then it's up to you. You can add more colors. You can put a bit more Quinacridone gold to fill in, to coordinate with what you've already got. But going back with a damp brush and just feathering these little bits of color, will really enhance your trees. Bring some strokes across, some not so much. If you go in with the Quinacridone gold, you want to start gentle, but you can see when it mixes with that purple or with that Mayan blue, it's really quite gorgeous. Don't know if we'll get this one finished before the end of today's video, but this will give you an idea of sort of where we're at with things. And it doesn't take much. The Quinacridone gold is a very rich and gorgeous pigment. That little tiny bit that I put on the surface there will be enough for me to pick up and just highlight in other areas. And we'll just do a little more on this one. You can, you know, outline both sides of the trees if you would like. The Quinacridone gold and the Moonglow mix together to make the most gorgeous, I don't know, it's a gray, it's a mauve, it's a almost got green. Moonglow has pinks and blues and different elements to it. And I like to just do a little bit of random, a little bit on this side, a little bit on that side, and there are your trees. I'll come back to these trees and finish them off a little bit later. I just wanted to show you, you know, how gorgeous that they are when you just get those colors moving together. And, you know, they are your trees. You could put any color you wanted in there. Make them turquoise, pink, doesn't matter. I've done them with bright purples and oranges, and they're just quite stunning. So the last thing that I would want to do, I mean, I will finish those trees, but I wanted to show you a little bit of making these trees a little more defined in the background here. These, and I think this, it's dry now, so you see this doesn't make any difference. So I will go in with my beautifully pointed Lebanzon Goat Hair Synthetic Blend. You can see that that point is exquisite. And I will just go into my Mayan blue and just take a tiny bit on the tip. I'll drop a bit of that back in there. And I just want to, and so this is wet on dry, and I'm just going to lay in just a couple of loose tree trunks. Oh, that one's quite thick now. I didn't realize I had that much water on my brush. So I'm just going to. I kind of like that though. I think that's a pretty cool tree trunk. So I'm just going to dab a tiny bit of that water off of there, and then with the side of my brush, just touching into the Mayan dark blue very gently, very slowly. I just want to create a bit of shadow coming up underneath some of these trees. I love using this brush because the side of it can give me some pretty interesting options. I can see there I've got too much water on the tip of my brush. And this is something you'll learn as you go. You'll get a feel for how much water you want on your brush for the effects that you want to do. And less is best. You can always add more later. And so I love that there's some, I'm going to add, because this is behind the trees, I want to add a bit more dark in there, make it a bit more shadowed. And then I did mention that I thought maybe it would be interesting to have a little pathway going back here. So I'm going to take a little blender brush. This is actually, I believe, an acrylic brush, but it's stiff bristles and it's very chiseled on the end. And I'm going to get it fairly wet, just dab a bit of it off, and then I'm going to go in and just scrub away a little bit. And we're going to make this little path here. So I'm keeping my lines horizontal. And just gently lifting and I want to make that a little bit irregular so that it looks like a kind of a ziggy-zagged path. And we'll bring it right down into this meadow area. I will define a couple of the edges here, just again with the chisel brush, a little bit of water, just cleaning out some edges here and there, just so you get the idea. So there's a bit of maybe a bit of a rock formation in the back. It doesn't have to be specific. And if you wanted to add more color to that little walkway, you certainly could. I think I would be tempted to just leave it like that, kind of mysterious, and gives you the idea that there may be a little walkway there. But I think that's you know, a good attempt at kind of tackling some of the things that we threw down on the page just to get things going. I'll continue on. I'll play with the birches. I'll bring them to life the way the way they want to emerge on my page. I think I'll continue with the Moonglow and the Quinacridone Gold. I just love that, that little combination. And I think once it's done and matted, I think we're going to have a pretty okay painting from just an exercise of playing down shapes and getting things started. So give it a try. Get started. Put some color down, put some shapes down, do a couple of exercises ahead of time, get yourself in the flow, get your hand moving. Play what if. What if I added this color or this shape? Have some fun with it. I hope you've enjoyed this today as much as I have. It's been really fun playing with the colors and the shapes and the pigments. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel or visit my website, bandrystudio.com. That's BANDRAOI studio.com. Or head over to our memberships area. We're going to have some fun things happening there soon.